how would you like to make your first million? And we have Michael with us, which is the CEO of ECI Development. So, Michael, we have a question for you that all our listeners are want to know the answer. So, what are the 5 steps that you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
You know what? I love that question, Harry. It's wonderful. It's great to be here. I made my first million. Before we got on, you were explaining that 1 out of 5 of your listeners is tech, and 1 out of 5 of your listeners are property investors. And what's really interesting is I made my first million in technology in my 20s. I was
yes. Yeah. Right. 1 out of 5 interviews, right? Listeners we have from all over interview, but the people that we interview.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I see. Interviewers. Yeah. So my very first million I made in technology. And I was in Washington, D.C. area in the computer business for about 13 years in my 20s and early 30s, and did very, very well in that business. But I think the thing that entrepreneurs, like you ask about this, the 5 steps for an entrepreneur. One of the magical things about entrepreneurs, and one of the reasons I really enjoy working with folks like you and people who are on your program, is that entrepreneurs all share this spirit of adventure, right? That entrepreneurs are risk takers. They're people who are willing to lay it on the line, and whether it's time or money or both, they get an idea. They're creative, but more than anything, I use the word we for you and me and the folks listening, we are adventurous souls. And that's a pretty rare breed, right? At the end of the day, not many people are adventurous. Most people, I think, are content with safety and security and a job, a job, and a paycheck and things like that, right? Entrepreneurs are different. And so that's a great thing, by the way. That is a wonderful characteristic. But just like any strong characteristic, they always talk about the double-edged sword, right? And there's always a downside to it. So I'm going to talk about the positive aspects of being an entrepreneur and how that can help us create our first million overseas, the 5 steps. But a couple of the 5 steps are actually going to be things that we need to be careful of because of our nature, because we are adventurous and we are excitable. And so the first thing is be creative, have that spirit of adventure, and step out. Right. And I think we're all used to that. We're all comfortable with that. But at the end of the day, I think for some reason, when we're looking at property overseas, there's this extra fear factor. And that doesn't necessarily need to be true. My book is all about how to get it right the first time. You buy your home overseas and get it right the first time. And the reality is when we do proper due diligence, that would be number 2, right? First is step out, right? Step out. Say, I'm going to do this. Right? Don't do it yet, but just stay. Then make the statement, I am going to do this. The second statement is to plan your due diligence, right? Do it right. Do it smart. And the first element of due diligence is to slow down. And I know that's hard for us as entrepreneurs. We want to race ahead. We're like excited. We're going to do this. We're going to run. And that's fine. We should step out and go. But when we go overseas, when we go to a new country, a foreign country, right, we are leaving our ground rules. We're leaving the things that we can assume, right? In the United States, we can make assumptions about the law or about the relationships or the contracts or neighborhood or lots of things. We can make assumptions, and usually they're true. And that's why we can move quickly, because we can make assumptions about things and we can move on. When we go overseas, the most dangerous thing we bring with us are our assumptions, right? Because they might be true, but they might not be true. They might look like they should be true. Well, it looks the same, but it's not the same. It's a new country. It's a foreign country. The laws are different. The relationships are different, right? And so we have to proceed with caution, and we need to proceed with humility. And that's another challenge for entrepreneurs. We've been successful. And I think, maybe as we get older, we get wiser, and we've had failures as well as successes. Maybe we begin to learn some humility. But when we're overseas, when we're outside our comfort zone, right? In a new territory, humility is actually our strongest asset. Go slow, forget assumptions, be humble, right? And then finally, I would say the last step is align yourself with really good partners and advocates, right? Because while we like to go at things ourselves, and as entrepreneurs, many times we are the owners of company, and I'm a CEO, right? So I'm the leader of the company. But at the end of the day, we need to align ourselves with advocates and specialists, whether it's a lawyer, a realtor, maybe it's a local businessman, a banker, right? We need to align ourselves with people who become our advocates in this new environment. And when we do those things, we really can get it right the first time. So, we have these great assets as entrepreneurs, the spirit of adventure. We need to harness it. We're not going to tame it. We're not going to restrict it. We're going to harness it and focus it like a light. You have a light bulb and it puts out a lot of light. But when we harness that light and we turn it into a laser, it's still the same amount of light, but it is far more powerful because we've harnessed it and we've focused it. And I think that's the key when we go overseas, especially for property ownership, harnessing this energy, harnessing this sense of adventure, and then aligning ourselves with people who become our advocates. Take it slow, proceed with caution, and leave our assumptions at the door, and validate and test, right? Validate and test assumptions before we count on them. And we do those things, we really can be successful in an international property investment.
So, Michael, tell us who better than you to answer this question. Again, 1 out of 5 guests out of the 500 millionaires that we have interviewed, 1 out of 5 are tech entrepreneurs or they're tech millionaires, they exit the company. And the other 1 out of 5 are property investors. They are in different areas of real estate. Some people are doing commercial, people are doing residential, some people are buying warehouses and dividing to pieces and rent them out. Some people are doing rent to own. So why do you think, on the other hand, we want to have our listeners to be aware, right, that that the fact that doesn't matter what we say here, okay, they listen to the podcast and they say, you know what, if I want to make $1 million, I either go to property or tech because this is the statistics from Harry's podcast. So can you tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly of tech business and property business? And do you consider that these two are the most powerful vehicles in the planet to build wealth, or not?
Well, I actually think the most powerful vehicles to create wealth are ourselves, like our physical and mental, spiritual assets, right? Us, right? If we choose to deploy those assets in technology or real estate, or maybe it's a plumbing business, right? As an entrepreneur, maybe you're a plumber, but you say, look, I can be so much more than a plumber. I want to have a plumbing business, right? And so
why we have more quantity of these ones coming to the podcast?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. Because look, I think both are sexy. Let's be honest. Tech is really sexy and property is really sexy, right? Owning a plumbing business is not particularly sexy, but I'm not guessing, there's a lot of money in that, right? And so I think the deployment of our assets, our personal assets, are our biggest strength. But why tech? Why property? Because look, both of those, tech especially, for the last maybe 30, 40, 50 years, right? Since the 80s, right? With the advent of the personal computer. That's what, look, before the personal computer, things were mainframes. It was a very, very centralized and controlled investment platform, right? You had 3 or 4 giant companies, IBM, DEC, Digital Equipment Company, NEC, Nippon Equipment Company, right? You had maybe Fujitsu. You had a few giant companies that controlled the space, right? But when the PCs, personal computers, started to come out in the 80s and just exploded then in the late 80s and 90s, right? Now all of a sudden you had hundreds, if not thousands, of companies that you could get involved with. And so all of a sudden the opportunity for many more people was there. Whether you were an entrepreneur, Michael Dell started his own computer company, right? And obviously it became very successful. Or you just worked in the industry, but had the ability to capture this incredible rising tide. And then we moved from hardware, onto the software side, and then we moved into the telephony side, right? and now the internet and now AI, right? And so, we're just seeing this evolution of tech. It's lightning speed, it's fast, it's sexy, and it's creating a ton of wealth all over the world as an industry, right? So people, an industry, right? But at the end of the day, you've got people who are part of it, who are riding, and not just riding, who are pushing and developing this incredible wealth creation for the world. And so I think tech is very sexy. It's going to continue to be sexy. And but if you look at property investing, that goes back centuries, right? Tech is 50 years old, 60 years old. I don't know. Again, pick the time frame, right? Property is centuries old, right? People who have owned property over the millennial, I say centuries, but it's really millennial, right? So, property investing has a pedigree and a history that is deep and rich and profound. We know it creates wealth, but more importantly than the creation of wealth, right? It stabilizes and preserves wealth for future generations. And I think that's maybe the important thing about property investment. Yes, it can cash flow. Yes, you can create wealth with it. But when we steward that wealth appropriately into future generations, which many family offices have done, and I think that's a big thing, right? Or families, period, but the family office concept, right? They can steward that wealth into the future so that the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, can stand on the shoulders of the generations before them and really get to the next level. So I think real estate property investing holds that kind of pedigree, but it also holds that kind of promise into the future. And while tech is changing rapidly and growing and evolving very rapidly, and unless you're fully engaged in it all the time, it's hard to keep track of it, right? Real estate is changing. Real estate is growing. There are growth areas. There are areas that are maybe falling back a little bit. But that's the dynamics of real estate, right? And if we look at real estate markets, right, I do a lot of work with the National Association of Realtors in the United States, and we describe the real estate cycle like a heartbeat. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Interest rates and inventory and, COVID and other things. It's up and down, but it's really up and down in an upward curve, right? It's always going up, and it kind of moves up and down, but it's kind of trending up. The nice thing about real estate is that it's at a pace that is manageable for people who are, not able to devote 100% of their time and attention to it, right? Maybe we have a job, maybe we have a career, but we start to pick up properties, rental properties, and we can kind of do that on the side. I hate to say it that way, but we do it on the side. We have an investment property or two or three, whereas tech's a lot harder. Like if you really want to make money in tech, you got to just be all in all the time because it's just changing so rapidly. Real estate gives us the ability to enter that marketplace, that market space, begin to create the wealth platform called real estate ownership. And then if we do it right, be able to pass that wealth on to future generations and let it steward forward for centuries.
So, Michael, this is now let's talk about your niche and your particular niche, because I remember my first business was in property. We managed to sell over 5 million doing one strategy we call rent to rent. So we used to rent the properties, then we fix them up and we rent it room by room, right, by units. And I remember a Jewish property investor, a friend of mine, one day we were working in London, I'm based in London, and he told me, Harry, do you see this? And then it was like two buildings, okay? And in the middle, it was like a house with a lower base. And then the investor told me, Harry, you see this space between these two buildings? This we call air space. What that means is that if you buy the property, okay, you will be able to build on top because you have two buildings in between that they are higher. And he told me, not too many people know this, and this is one of the niches of when we buy this property. We know this, but not too many people know, and we have built well about that. So when, Michael, you decide or you choose or how this has happened, that your niche is invested in property abroad, which is something that could sound risky and well, on the other hand, it's very fulfilling because, if the property doesn't work in terms of investment, at least you can have it for holiday or no. Or,
Yeah.
Depends if people are buying it as a second home. So it's not too bad actually. I think that I love it because
Yeah.
worst case scenario, you keep the house, no, and you use it for holiday. But anyway,
Absolutely.
Michael, so how you end up in this strategy? It was the first strategy. I mean, you are a former entrepreneur. You did your tech business.
Yep.
So how you end up in this specific niche? Kind of by accident or you knew?
No, but that's a great question, Harry. Yes, by accident of all things. So I was in the computer business in the
Welcome
Washington,
to the
D.C.
entrepreneurial world. Everything happened by accident, right?
It's true.
We
Hey,
buy something, we make some money. Oh, we are in business.
That's right. But you know what?
Oh,
when I was
wow.
in the computer business, I told my sales team, I said, look, Lady Luck walks down the hallway of life and she knocks on everybody's door. You have to be ready to open the door and welcome it in, right? And that also goes with the saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? Because if we're working hard and we're preparing, then when Lady Luck knocks on the door, we can open the door and we can take advantage of it, right? But if we're not ready, the opportunity just keeps walking down the hall and somebody else gets it, right? And so accident, luck, serendipity, whatever. I mean, all of these terms, I think, describe our ability to be prepared for when this luck happens, right? And so yes, I was in my office. I was a Tuesday actually, and a college friend called me and he said, "Hey, Cobster, what are you doing this weekend?" I said, "I don't know. Why? What you going on?" He said, "Listen, if you can get out of the office Thursday, Friday, you can come to Belize with me. I'm going down there Thursday morning. I'm coming back Sunday night. Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." But Harry, this is 1993, and there is no Google, right? And I'm scratching my head, and we're talking a little bit more, and I'm like, Belize, where's Belize? I had no idea where Belize was, but I had already said yes. Right? That's the spirit of adventure. That's part of who we are as entrepreneurs, right? I'd already said yes, but then I had to kind of fess up. I'm like, all right, man, where are we going? I don't know. Belize, where is that? And he told me, and I said, great, good. So we went to Belize, and went back a couple months later. He was going back. I said, let me know. And I went back with him 2 months later. We bought some condos. We each bought a condo, an oceanfront condo, because I'm like, I could see the opportunity. I'm like, holy smokes, we can buy a condo directly on the ocean for $100,000. I mean, like, it's just crazy. It's like, wow. So we took advantage of it. We bought a couple condos. And what happened, Harry, this is kind of interesting because I think this is the next element of entrepreneurship, right? We are adventurous. We say yes to things, and we're ready. Lady Luck, knocks on our door, right? But so his name is Joel. So Joel and I are hanging out by the pool. The developer of the project comes by, and we're saying, "Hey, Jim, why aren't you finishing these buildings?" Because he had 11 buildings done. Actually, he had 13 buildings done, 11 in one phase, 2 in the next phase, and 3 more buildings that we never saw anybody working on. And we're like, "Jim, what's the deal? Why aren't you working on these buildings? Obviously, you finish a building, you sell the condos, you make money. That's your business." And he tells us a story. He says, I came with a few $1,000,000. I bought my land. I built the first buildings, and like I had to finance the buyers. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, there's no bank in Belize that will lend you money as a foreigner, and the up in the United States and Canada won't lend money on a condo in Belize. And so he ended up financing his buyers, right? He'd get 20% down, 50% down, whatever he could get, but then he had to hold the paper. And so my business partner's smart, really smart guy, said, "Hey, Jim, would you sell us your mortgage paper?" And Jim didn't hesitate. He goes, "Absolutely." And so there we are laying by the pool, and we have this idea of how we can serve a need in the marketplace. And that's really what an entrepreneur does, right? An entrepreneur sees a problem, right? And Jim had a problem. He was out of money. Like, he ran out of money because he was financing all of his buyers. He needed the money so he could keep building his buildings, right? So he had a problem. And we saw that as an opportunity to solve a problem, serve buyers to buy a condo but can't get loans. And so we started a mortgage company. That was our very first business in 1994.
Wow.
It was a mortgage company in Belize. But I think that's it, right? It was accidental, but it was also intentional in the sense of, it was accidental that I went and got involved, but it was intentional in the sense of wow, here's a problem. And if we could solve it, everybody wins. The buyer wins, Jim wins, we win, right? Kind of everybody wins. And that was our first business in Belize.
And Belize is beautiful, no?
Fantastic, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes, English speaking, Caribbean. It is spectacular.
Wow.
Yes.
So then, wow, and because that the biggest challenge is the mortgage when you're buying abroad. This
Right.
is a very difficult, almost impossible, and that's a big challenge because who has all this money to put in front, right?
Absolutely. And so what we did, Harry, was very quickly we went out, we raised a bunch of money from friends and family in the computer business, a bunch of Joel's clients. We put together a few $1,000,000. We bought mortgages. We went back out. We raised a little bit more money. But by that point, we kind of tapped our circles, right? And we said,
absolutely. Yeah.
We said, gosh, we
you
need
run
more
out of
money.
friends, basically. Eventually, you run out of friends.
We did. We ran out of friends. That's right.
Yeah, so, it happened to me also. So what's the next step when you run? What you do when you run out of friends?
Yeah, great question. So Belize, because it's a financial service center, it's like the Islands and the Turks and Caicos and the BVI. They have great banking legislation. So we applied for a banking license in Belize, and we received it in 2003. And so, full disclosure,
wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I helped start a bank in Belize. I'm on the board of directors. I'm on the management committee. And so, we have a bank, but our bank is really a mortgage company. That's what we do. We lend money all over Latin America and the Caribbean to foreigners, mostly North Americans, some Europeans, who want to buy property. So again, we solve.
You want to buy property abroad?
Absolutely. Yep. Exactly.
And doesn't necessarily be in Belize, right? Could be
correct.
In another
Anywhere, Latin America and the Caribbean.
Latin America and the Caribbean. Wow.
Correct.
Yep. Wow, Michael, that's very impressive. I do have a friend that was applying for a license of the bank, and this is
in
something.
Belize?
No, in London, where I live. Yeah, in London, and I've been told that it's and the collateral, the amount of money that you need to have a collateral in order for them actually consider your application. You're talking. So you guys managed to get the license to be a bank.
We did.
Wow, congratulations.
It took 3 years, Harry.
Yeah.
It took 3 years to get our license. Okay.
Yeah, it's no. It takes work, lawyers,
money.
Money. You need to have a big collateral. The number that my friend has as a collateral is I think over 500 million. Something like that. He was applying in UK.
In London and in London, right? Right. In Belize, less, but it's still.
And what I'm surprised is that, which is actually a big gap in the market that you guys are feeling, is that it's not only to a specific country, it could be Latin America, right? Which is can help other people, especially from US, right? Because who doesn't want a second home in a sunny location and affordable? Because today, by the way, we're broadcasting from Miami, and I can tell you, Miami is amazing. And everybody in US will love to have a second home in Miami Beach, but I'm checking on the price. Our price is like 3 to 5 million.
Right. And are you ready for this?
Mid beach, yeah, you literally have $1 million if you want a second home there, right?
Right.
So what happened with one that have less and still deserve a second home in a sunny place, right?
And Harry, so this proves the point of why we moved just from our mortgage company into the development space in 1996. We started our development company in 1996.
Wow, very impressive.
In Belize, right? And I'm going to talk about that airspace. You talked about the 2 buildings with the airspace.
Please tell us. We look forward to hear from you. But to learn from you, actually.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way to the end, and then I'll come back. You were talking about condos in Miami Beach for $3, $4, $5 million, right? Right, $1 million. Right now, today, very first property that we bought in Belize, we are building a Marriott resort and residences. You can own an oceanfront Marriott residence for $350,000.
Wow.
So that's 10%. Harry, that's 10% of Miami Beach, and it's Marriott. Wow. It's a Marriott property.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Wow, with the facility and everything. Then how much is going to cost the flight from US to there?
From Miami, I don't know,
No,
six,
no,
seven
no,
hundred
from
bucks.
US to Belize,
Yeah,
same.
from Miami, like Miami
No,
on
no, from
American.
US, from any, let's say, I'm trying to make the comparison
Six.
because you live in US, right? If
Yeah.
you're gonna buy your flight to Miami, you have to pay a lot of money, yeah. And
Yeah, right.
well, not a lot of money. You pay how much it's worth, yeah.
Right.
Flight to
Yes, yes.
Belize could be the same amount and
Six
probably the same
600
time, no?
bucks.
And the
$600.
time, and
You can fly.
how long take the flight?
So you can fly from anywhere in the United States and Canada to Belize for $600, $700, maybe $800, but sometimes $400 or $500, depending on the season, right? Yeah. And the ports, I mean, they have direct flights from Newark, Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, Los Angeles, Seattle, Toronto, Calgary, Montreal. So like they're direct flights, and the flight from, say, from New York to Belize is maybe 5 hours. From Miami, it's 2 hours. From Houston and Dallas, it's 2 hours. I mean, it's really close to the United States. It's not much further than Cancun. If you're from anywhere in the United States to Cancun, add 20 minutes of flying time. That's it. It's basically the same as flying to Cancun. So it's easy and convenient. But let me come back to that airspace thing, because that was really a fascinating point. I'd never heard it described that way, Harry. So by the way, I love podcasts and I love talking with people like you, because I learned so much, and I'd never even thought of that or heard of that. But back in 1998, we bought a piece of property on the coast of Belize, on Ambergris Key in San Pedro, and the zoning for height was 2 stories. But we were listening, and we've been working down there for about 5 years at the point. And so we knew the local area representatives, and we knew what was happening in the local government. And they were talking about increasing the zoning from 2 stories to 4 stories. And obviously that's money. That's like the land's the land. It doesn't, right? You just go up 2 more stories.
Absolutely. If you go higher, you have more money.
More money. And
absolutely.
Right. So we said, all right, well, let's wait. We're just until they go to 4 stories. And that took a little while. That took maybe another 5 years, but they eventually did that. And then we were in the middle of the 2008 real estate crisis. When they changed the zoning, we had the real estate crisis. And so then from 2008 to maybe 2013 or 14, we had a small resort on the property. So it cash flowed. It made money, not very much money, but it was like owning a drive-in movie theater, right? It makes a little bit of money, but what you really are doing is just holding the land, right? Protecting the land. And so that's what we did. And then in 2016, we started looking for a major brand, and we reached out to Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, and several others. And we actually signed our contract with Marriott in 2017 to build a Marriott hotel on that property. And we actually acquired our neighbor's property at some point in the middle of that as well. So now we had these 2 nice properties right on the ocean, and then COVID hit, and we're like, so, all right, you're like, you get going and then something, you get going and then something. Anyway, then COVID hit. But once COVID was over, we were able to put our funding package together. We broke ground, and we had all the money to build the hotel, and it's under construction right now. It's very exciting. It'll open 2 years from now. Actually, the Q4 of 2027, we will be open for business. And
wow.
It's been a long time coming. And we have other projects in Nicaragua. We have properties in Panama and Costa Rica as well. And so we're doing other things other places. But this Marriott really is, I think, probably the Marriott in Belize is truly the best investment for a property investor in America today. And bar none. It is the best investment. I mean, look, you can own branded residence, 100% ownership. You own it. Fee simple title. It's yours, right? You own it outright for $350. And so furniture and closing costs maybe $390. But for under $400,000, you have a oceanfront Marriott residence, all in, going to cash flow at a very, very nice cash flow rate. And we can't talk about that here, but we certainly talk with someone who's interested directly with what the rates are and what we're projecting. Very nice cash flow. But also what's really important in a country like Belize is the capital appreciation. So some places you get nice capital appreciation. Some places you get phenomenal capital appreciation. And because of where Belize is in this path of progress, right? This popularity path of progress. Belize is really coming into the airlift is increasing, the overnight visitors are increasing. The problem is that the number of rooms are not increasing nearly fast enough. Arrivals in the last 10 years have gone up 91%, and room count has only gone up 36%. And so when you have overnight arrivals up 90% and room inventory going up 36%, there's a hole in the marketplace. And again, this is what we look for as entrepreneurs, as investors. Where's the opportunity? Where's the arbitrage, right? And there is a powerful,
Michael, you have
arbitrage.
been there for so many years, right?
Yes.
You guys know that market really, really well. You have been there.
We do. Yeah. I mean, we've watched it. We've lived it, right? Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, you find the opportunity, right? So
correct.
Which other countries do you think that have potential in terms of, listen, I'm a big fan. I'm glad that you mentioned this. Yeah. I'm a fan of cash flow. Okay. So every property deal that we see, that we have a look, that, you know, that's for me, I'm a kind of guy that I'm 100% cash flow and capital appreciation. Well, if it happens, it's happened. It's on top of the cake. But for me, cash flow always have to work. There are people that are half and half. There are people that only want capital appreciation, right? So for the type of guy like me, which is a cash flow lover, I love cash flow because, you know, you make money every month. And if you make money every month, eventually you can replace your job. So you go to work just because you want to, not because you have to. From day one, right? So that's why I'm a big fan of cash flow, and also a big fan of cash flow because we need money every month, right? Because we need to buy food every month, so people don't have to pay the college for the kids. So we need money every month. So cash flow, positive cash flow, property. Imagine that my business in London that I have, that I started 18 years ago, when it was giving 2,000 pounds cash flow, profit per month. Can you mind? And it was a lot of properties, and it was for a lot of years. So you can do the math.
Exactly.
It was a cash flow thing. So that's the reason why I'm a big cash flow fan, because I live that on first person. So which other countries, apart from Belize, in your opinion, because you are a Caribbean, you are an expert in the area, you tell us that could be an idea for good property investment abroad United States?
Absolutely. Look, I would, and I'm going to say countries because that's fine, but it's a country, it's an area.
It's a location, absolutely.
Right?
Which areas of countries?
Thank you. Okay, because I do want to be more specific, right? And so for example, I'll just mention the countries real fast, then we'll come back. So like Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama. I think those are the countries that probably have and Nevis as well. Those 5 countries really have incredible opportunities for solid cash flow. And the reason is they are mature in the sense of they've got great airlift. At the bottom line, if you're looking for cash flow, nightly cash flow, right? Because there's a whole new market. And I'm going to talk about this. If you want to talk about it, we'll come back to it. But that's the digital nomad client. They're a different kind of renter. They are a 3-month, 6-month renter, right? Which is different than your nightly cash flow.
And they need fast internet. They have specific needs.
They do. And the other thing they want, stay here for a minute. We'll stay on for a minute. The other thing they want authenticity of experience. And so they're not going to rent in a gated community. They're not going to rent in a popular tourist destination. They're going to rent outside of that because what they want is they want to go hang with the locals, right? They want that authentic local experience. And so, but they want fast internet. So, I mean, right. So it's kind of this juxtaposition of the things that can you get? Yes. Sometimes you can get both. Sometimes you can't get both. And they're generally not willing to compromise on either. So finding the perfect location for nomads takes more work. It takes boots on the and that means time and energy, right? That means
it's a growing market, the digital nomads.
Yeah, it's a growing market. It's going to be a phenomenal market. And we as a developer, we're beginning to develop concept
Specific
projects.
for them. Oh, wow.
For them,
There you
right,
have a
right.
very good potential. Oh,
Absolutely. But if you wanted to go buy something today that you would rent to a digital nomad, what you would probably want to do is go rent. Let's just pick on Costa Rica for a minute. You would want to go rent a home in Costa Rica for a month and a rental car. And you would want to start to drive around and find these really cool, funky locations with yoga and surfing and maybe an agricultural element, right? You want to go find these locations. Then you want to come back and start to, even though you rented a house for a month up the road, you want to come down and rent something in that little town for 3 or 4 nights and talk to the waiter, talk to the waitress, talk to people you meet on the beach, like get the vibe. And if you do that kind of legwork, you can identify a property that will meet all of the qualifications, right? And then you're going to start to plug it in and you're going to get nice 3-month, 6-month, 1-year rentals from digital nomads. And that's that marketplace, right? How
about developments? How about developments, small developments?
Maybe small developments. Again, the challenge there is a lot of the developments are built with this US baby boomer in mind, and that doesn't really fit the mentality of
100%.
Right, because your digital nomads are Gen Z, maybe Millennial Z, and they're in their 20s and 30s, and they just want a different experience than what the typical development, like I have built in the past, would deliver for them, right? But to come back to your question, let's with the Dominican Republic, right? If you bought something in Cap Cana, that's where I would go. I would go to Cap Cana, right? I would buy something in Cap Cana, from Europe, from the United States, from Canada, direct flights, charter flights, lots of people coming there. The thing is, and this is true in each of these destinations, you're going to pay more for the property because it's mature, right? So you'll pay more for the property, but you're going to get more consistent cash flow. So your yield might be, I don't know, 8, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, right? But that's pretty good yield. And whatever, like you said, whatever appreciation you get, right? Same thing in Mexico.
And if you go for 6 months on holiday, when the property is empty, have your holiday in Dominican Republic.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. Right. And so Cancun, Mexico, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, those are the 2 places in, I think, a mature tourist market. So again, you're going to pay more for the asset, but you're going to get fairly consistent cash flow. In Costa Rica, I would look at something on the Guanacaste Peninsula, right? Again, very tourism driven. In Panama, I would probably look at something in Coronado or Chame, being very specific on those specific locations in those countries where you're going to see a mature market. You're going to be able to buy properties at a reasonable price, but they're already escalated. The thing about Belize, and I'll just come to this and say it just one more time, you're going to get the same kind of 7, 8, 9% yield, but you're also going to get the potential of incredible appreciation over time. And that's the difference between a mature market. Like there might be some get 6 1 year and 7 or 9, and going to go from 7, 8, 9 to 10, 11, 12 plus the appreciation. But it'll be a little bit more of a volatile ride, maybe the first 3, 4 years. But after 3 or 4 years, it will have moved into the mature status, and so you're going to see at that point forward, your average daily rates will be higher, right? They're definitely going up because supply and demand push those rates higher. You're also going to have occupancy rates that generally stabilize in that 70-ish% rate. And when that happens, your ROI, your cash on cash ROI, really is going to be somewhere around 11, 12, maybe even 13%, right, every year. But your capital appreciation will have skyrocketed. Yeah, you'll be a little more volatile in the first, say, 2, 3, 4 years. But once it stabilizes, your cash on cash is going to be significantly higher, and you're going to have the capital appreciation. But you're going to have to tolerate some volatility in the first couple of years. If you want no volatility, you just want straight up, 8%, bang on, like day one, year in, year out, Cap Cana, Cabo San Lucas, and the Guanacaste of Costa Rica. Those 3 will give you bang on, 8% a year just from day one. But it's Belize, you're going to get maybe 6, 7, 8 your first few years, couple 3 years. But then as it matures and stabilizes, you're going to get 10, 11, 12%. and it should stabilize in around 12%.
Wow.
After that. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And because think about this, because your
Yeah, I
yield
understand, Michael, what
is
you share.
based on,
Yes, so the bank matures, yeah. But the
yeah,
opportunity is there, right?
absolutely. But Harry, when you buy the asset, you fixed that bottom, you fixed the denominator, right? You have the denominator in the equation at say $350,000. So if today's nightly rate is $400, and in 3 or 4 years when the market stabilizes, then the rate is $500, and the occupancy goes from 50% to 70% at maturity. Yeah, your yield number, your bottom line cash flow obviously increases, but your yield number goes up. And here's then if you want to sell that asset in the future, right, you're going to sell it based on the yield, like the cap rate, right? And so now all of a sudden, that's where you can really start to see some really cool numbers on that appreciation of the asset, because your cap rate is kind of the inverse on the sales price of what you're getting out in cash flow, say 5-7 years from now. No, I'm a Belize. Let me say, 3-4 years ago, I wasn't. 4 years ago, I was talking about Panama, because Panama was in the sweet spot of the curve 5 years ago. And Harry, 2 or 3 years from now, El Salvador will be in the sweet. That's the next one coming, by the way. El Salvador is the next up and coming country in Central America. If somebody was saying, I'm looking for more appreciation, I'm willing to deal with some more, some volatility on my cash flow for the next 5 years, but I'm looking to triple my money in 10 or 12 years, then I would say El Salvador is the place you would want to buy today. If you said, well, I can wait a few more years, I don't mind paying a little bit more, but less volatility. I think in 2 or 3 years, El Salvador will be where Belize is today. It will be the bullseye of the best investment in the region. But today, right now, absolutely, unequivocally, Ambergris Key Belize is, and I would even say our Marriott. It could be another branded product on the island, but a branded product, Key Belize, is the best investment in Central America today, bar none.
That's fantastic. So, Michael, someone want to know more about that? They want to learn from you. Some people might be listening. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. Some of them exit the business. Some of them want to start to the next path, because one thing is be a good entrepreneur. One thing is to make money. Completely different thing is to keep the money. For that, you have to become a great investor. Yeah, and you demonstrate in this podcast that you don't know what you're talking about, what you own a bank.
Thank you.
So, I mean, you not own a bank, but apply and be part of a license for a bank. So no one more qualified to you to talk about the first place. Anyway, if somebody want to learn about you, they want to find out the possibilities, maybe they exit the business, they have a few millions there, and they want to a second part, like to keep that money. Okay.
Yep.
And maybe they want to learn more from you. So how people can find you, how this process works.
Harry, what we did is we set up an email address at our company for you, harry.sardinas@ecidevelopment.com. So it's your name, right? harry.sardinas at ecidevelopment.com. And if anybody emails that after listening to this podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them a link at Amazon. My book's on Amazon. I'm going to send anybody who requests it a link. They can go to Amazon.
Michael, do you mind to read the name of the book for the people listening in the car? What's the name of the book and the subtitle? Because some people might be listening in the car or in the gym. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. Yes. How to buy your home overseas and get it right the first time. The most important thing there is get it right the first time, right?
Author Michael K. Cobb.
Michael K. Cobb. Michael K. Cobb on Amazon. And my gift to your listeners is I will send them a link and download a free Kindle version of my book if they just simply email me, harry.sardinas@ecidevelopment.com. I will send them the link to download the book, Harry.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for this gift that you give to our listeners. And for all of you following the broadcast, See you in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneurs like Michael break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.